What makes a muscle car truly fast? Is it the raw power, iconic design, or the exciting feeling of going so fast that others can only dream of catching up to you? Well, get ready as we explore the 10 fastest Pontiac muscle cars ever made, from iconic 1960s classics to more modern marvels, along with a hidden gem. Buckle up as we take a look at the machines that defined American muscle. Kicking off our list at number 10 is the 1966 Pontiac Catalina. Although this car exhibited a more classy design with a wider, more refined appearance compared to the rest of the muscle cars on this list, it packed a mean punch under the hood. The Catalina 2+2 featured a powerful 6.9-liter high-output V8 engine, coupled with 3 dual-barrel Rochester carburetors, which generated an impressive 367 horsepower and 461 pound-foot of torque. With the introduction of a new 3-speed torque-converting transmission, the Catalina's performance spiked, allowing it to sprint from 0 to 60 in just 7 seconds, a respectable time for its era. The Catalina 2+2 might be the least exciting one on this list, but it's most definitely an underrated classic that deserves recognition. While it might be the least exciting one on the list, it sure did pave the way for more thrilling models, as we have the 1967 Pontiac Firebird at number 9. The 1967 Pontiac Firebird 400 was Pontiac's answer to the release of Ford Mustang and Chevrolet's first-generation Camaro. They'd created a new market for affordable sporty cars, and Pontiac wanted a piece of that action, which led to the creation of the Firebird 400 in 1967. The first-generation Firebird had a characteristic Coke bottle styling shared with its cousin, the Chevrolet Camaro. Announcing a Pontiac styling trend, the Firebird's bumpers were integrated into the design of the front end, giving it a more streamlined look than the Camaro. The car had a sleek, aggressive look, which made it stand out in the crowd. But regardless of how it looked, what's important was what's beneath all that exterior. The Firebird was equipped with a 400 cubic inch 6.6-liter V8 that produced 325 HP and a 410 pound-foot of torque. The 67 Pontiac Firebird could also go from 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, which made it one of the fastest cars in its class and solidifying its place as a true muscle car icon. Its engine gave the Firebird the power it needed to compete with the likes of Ford Mustang and other muscle cars of its era, quickly establishing itself as a formidable contender. The Firebird's first generation laid down the foundation for one of America's most beloved muscle cars. Building on that foundation, at number 8, we have one of the founding fathers of muscle cars, the 1965 Pontiac GTO. Often hailed as one of the original muscle cars that kicked off muscle car madness, the 65 Pontiac GTO could go from 0 to 60 in a mere 5.8 seconds and could hit the quarter mile in 14.5 seconds, going at 100 miles an hour. Following the Tempest Le Mans GTO's successful debut in 1964, Pontiac escalated their efforts at capturing the youth market by refining the GTOs they sold. The resulting GTO appeared crispier, cleaner, and sharper looking, and it had a far more arrogant street stance than it did the year before. The automaker installed a V8 under its hood that breathed either through a 4-barrel carburetor or 3 double barrels, which emitted 335 horsepower at 5,000 RPMs, which was then bumped up to 360 horsepower in the 1966 GTO. The standard transmission was a 3-speed manual, but customers could opt for a 2-speed auto or 4-speed wide ratio one. In addition, Pontiac offered a few options for the axle ratio and limited slip differential. Pontiac basically wanted you to have a beast in your garage. And that vision was especially important during the tough times faced by the classic car at number 7. That right there is the 1970 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. During the 70s, American cars were declining in all aspects, most obviously power and performance, but also in styling and quality. But the 1970 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am was well and truly an exception. The Firebird Trans Am had bested its sister car, the Chevy Camaro, on both speed, as it had a straight-line speed of 0 to 60 in 5.7, and style by having a more beautiful nose, massive aero kits, and powerful hood scoop to excite the American public. Borrowing its engines from the GTO, the 1970 Firebird Trans Am was fitted with a 400 cubic inch 6.6-liter V8 that produced 335 HP and 430 pound-feet of torque. Yet thanks to its weight and overall build, the performance was nearly identical. It also had a top speed of around 130 miles an hour, which was quite impressive for a muscle car of its era. The 1970 Trans Am was also featured in the 1977 hit movie Smokey and the Bandit, which helped boost its popularity and cement its status as a cultural icon. Today, the car is highly sought after by collectors and automotive enthusiasts, highlighting its enduring appeal. A prime example of Pontiac's efforts to captivate buyers lies at number 6. The Judge was an options package that was only available for 1969 Pontiac GTOs. It was introduced to try and reverse the decline in GTO sales. In 1969, the Pontiac GTO Judge was a completely separate model and an extremely competent contender in the American muscle car industry. It featured a 6.6-liter V8 and a whopping 366 horsepower, which would later appear in the Firebird Trans Am, but it was designed for the GTO as it was tuned for more power. The 1969 Pontiac GTO was indeed really quick off the line and proved to be a popular choice at almost all drag strips throughout America by the drag racers, as it could hit the 60-mile-an-hour mark in about 5.7 seconds. The GTO was on track to be a huge success. Instead of being a base model, a Judge could be ordered with most options. It was a cut above your usual muscle car in power, prestige, and price, and it worked. Pontiac sold 6,833 Judges that year, which accounted for a little over 10% of the entire 1969 GTO production. The Judge also made a cameo in the 1993 cult classic Dazed and Confused. We're halfway through our list now as we move on to number 5. By 1973, insurance rates on muscle cars had gone up, making automakers reluctant to produce them anymore. Muscle cars were known as gas guzzlers, also making them harder to afford. All that aside, Pontiac still decided to risk it and create the Trans Am for 1973, and that risk paid off. Against all odds, this muscular beast turned out to be extremely popular. With a max horsepower of 310, the 1973 Firebird Trans Am unlocked the potential to blast from 0 to 60 in just 5.6 seconds when equipped with Pontiac's Super Duty 455 cubic inch 7.5-liter V8 engine. Many people believe that 1973 was the pinnacle of American muscle cars, but looking back at the 73 Pontiac, it was obvious that the engineers at Pontiac didn't get the memo. But looking back, we owe those engineers a debt of gratitude for keeping the muscle car alive for as long as they did. The 73 Trans Am's a rare find, as it was a low production year for this car. Out of about 4,800 total models being made, 250 were Super Duty models, which made it a popular collector's item even among gearheads today. This rarity is fitting for the subsequent muscle car on our list too. This might come as a surprise to many given the aforementioned vehicles, but the 62 Pontiac Catalina Super Duty 421 isn't just one of the fastest Pontiacs ever, it was also quicker than rivals such as the Chevy Impala 409. Its engine consisted of a gigantic 6.9-liter V8 with 405 horsepower and 425 pound-foot of torque, which may just be the most powerful true Pontiac engine on this list. It was an incredibly powerful muscle car engine, and the 62 Pontiac Catalina Super Duty 421 was proof of that. However, many testers believe the numbers downplayed the 421's actual output, and naturally this iconic car launched to 60 miles an hour for a complete standstill in 5.4 seconds, completely ludicrous at that time. The 1960 Super Duty Catalina is symbolic of Pontiac's early 60s dominance of the drag strips and NASCAR's high-speed ovals. Landing on number 3 of the top 10 fastest Pontiac muscle cars ever made is the GT-37. If you ever want to see a sleeper muscle car, the 71 Pontiac GT-37 was that car. It was a good thing that Pontiac had the GTO in its bag, as it made it easier to create a mild-mannered successor. They called it the GT-37, which some would say is a high-performance vehicle on a low-lead diet. The engine consisted of a 350 cubic inch 5.8-liter V8 rated at 250 horsepower and a pair of 400 cubic inch 6.6-liter mills. The latter produced 265 horsepower in the 2-barrel setup and exactly 300 horsepower when fitted with a 4-barrel carburetor. The Pontiac GT-37 was an underestimated powerhouse with incredible horsepower hidden beneath a humble exterior. It was one of the few sleeper muscle cars of its time, which had an acceleration from 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, similar to that of the 1962 Pontiac Catalina. Taking home second place is the 2002 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am WS6. Back in 1978, Herb Adams, the Pontiac legend, who was then an integral part of Pontiac's advanced design group, helped introduce the world to the WS6 Trans Am Special Performance Package. The WS6 package continued through the Pontiac Firebird's third generation from 1982 to 92. The WS6 package delivered more power and an unmistakably more aggressive appearance. The addition of a simple 3-character rear badge and boldly styled hood made the WS6 stand out in a way it never had before. Unlike previous generation suspension-only upgrades, the final iteration of the WS6 brought about better handling, a more aggressive look, and, more excitingly, more power. The 2002 Firebird Trans Am WS6 has a 5.7 LS1 V8 that produces 325 horsepower and 350 pound-foot of torque, which doesn't sound like much, but it was sufficient enough to propel the lightweight Firebird to the 60-mile-an-hour mark in 5 seconds flat and through the quarter-mile in 13.7 seconds at 107 miles an hour. The 2002 Pontiac Trans Am W6 was a fitting farewell to one of the hottest and most sought-after Pontiac muscle cars in history. This legacy of performance and passion carried over into the fastest Pontiac muscle car, which takes our #1 spot. The 2008 G8 GXP was a modern take on the classic muscle cars, released 2 years prior to Pontiac essentially being killed by GM. The G8 GXP draws out its power from a 6.2-liter V8 that delivers a perfect 1-to-1 power-to-torque ratio and 415 horsepower coupled with 415 pound-foot of torque. The G8 GXP was the last true muscle car Pontiac ever built, as it went from 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, making it the fastest Pontiac ever made. The G8 GXP was comparable to the likes of the BMW M5, as it was several tenths of a second faster than the Mustang. And so it begs the question, if the G8 GXP had in fact been released sooner, would it have been Pontiac's saving grace? I guess we'll never know. And that wraps up our list of the 10 fastest Pontiac muscle cars ever made. From sleek and classic designs to absolute sleepers, these muscle cars have left a trace of themselves in the automotive industry. Before you go, let us know down in the comments which car impressed you the most on our list. Were there any cars you were expecting to be there? Feel free to let us know. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like the video, as it helps us out a lot. And we'll see you in the next episode.